My hat! This was a very fun time racing Mini Z. This is by Kyosho, the RCs. Now here I'm racing quite far away from where I usually go. But this is the Mini Z track, and here we go. So I'm the penultimate car. I'm about to be passed by the other white car, so we're very similar. The body style that I'm running is an Audi R8, which is a great looking body. This is the very first main. So all three mains are here. This was a triple main event. This is the C main. Very first time driving, still I'm horrible. No excuse, but no, actually, yeah, I do have excuses. There's also a few reasons there, but to be honest, it was loads of fun. My car is almost completely stock, and the reason why I'm saying almost completely stock is because I am running different tires. Now on this one, I am running I think this is the stickier compound in the rear, and then the next two races I'm going to be running sticky compound in the front. So you're going to notice one of the a difference between how the car runs now versus later. Here you can tell it pushes a little more. Actually, it looks like I'm in more control than I am in the other two races, believe it or not. And part of that is, well, because it pushes. Once I replace the front tires, you're going to notice that it's going to dart left and right. So as soon as I turn the wheel, it's going to take a turn, which it took me a long time, unfortunately longer than I had, to adjust. And the reason why is because I generally had to initiate my turns ahead of time because of the way it pushed. Once I replaced those front tires, I couldn't do that anymore because I would just run into a wall, and you scrub so much speed when you run into those walls. Something else that I had to do to this car, obviously I'm not the fastest one, I was last. I believe I was last. Here I think I was the penultimate vehicle, and I think the other two races I was last. So I think overall I am last. But the point is tires. Tires make or break your car, and it's the same thing with buggy. I've talked about this in buggy, I think, when I was talking about carpet, running the buggy and carpet. When I speak about 1/10 scale touring cars, I've mentioned that before, for example in F1. If you haven't watched my F1, what I have learned so far, where I talk about my X-Ray X1, please do so if you have a chance. And there, again, I emphasize tires. So tires are the most important component. Something else is, when I showed up, I didn't realize that out of the box these cars are in training mode. So one of the things that you have to do is get it out of training mode, or else it's going to be incredibly slow. So all you do with these Kyoshos to get them out of training mode is you disengage the transmitter, and then you hold throttle all the way, and then you engage the transmitter. So the green light will go from blinking to a solid green light, and that'll give you the regular speed. Now, something else that I had to do is I had to replace the pinion, because the stock pinion that it comes with, I believe, is a 6-tooth. So I actually went ahead and put the 9-tooth, which is included, luckily. So you just replace the two little motor mounts and the pinion. Now, some of the parts, when I installed the transponder, a little challenging to get in. You almost need needle nose pliers or tweezers, or really small fingers, which isn't happening. So I had to use some tweezers that I had, and that worked out with some of those small parts. But still, very fun car, and like I said, I'm running a box stock car, with the exception of tires. One of my race mates lent me his front tires. So for the other two races, you're going to see those tires, and those tires, I mean, I actually love them. In the front, I just have to get used to the different drive. But I will say, these cars are plenty fast, and they're all very, very close. What ends up making the difference, if you pay attention to the cars a bit, is the mistakes. The cars with the better lines have a faster race. The cars with less mistakes have a better race. So that's really what it comes down to. It's a very even race, I would say, or even sensation. It's more on, I would say, skill and patience of the driver rather than the car. Well, of course, and tires. But it's definitely a class to begin with. Now, they do have some other classes. You can run modified classes. There are some individuals that have brass chassis, for example, to lower their CG. Some of them also have brushless motors. Now, here in this class, it's the brushed out-of-the-box motors that we are running, and my car is the one closest to stock. I mean, with the exception of tires and the front diffuser. Now, the reason why I say the front diffuser is because I actually shaved it off, and the reason, well, here, this is race 2, so you're going to notice how the car darts now, if you look at it. So against the penultimate car, so there, you see, I wasn't expecting it, and I took the turn and just ran right into the wall. I wasn't expecting to turn so much, so that was pretty funny. I'm still going to be dead last. I'm pretty sure I'm dead last here, or maybe somebody DNFs, does not finish, and then I think I end up in the penultimate spot. But anyway, that's the effect that tires will do. Notice how it just wants to turn. It was actually an amazing experience just seeing how much, so little things make a big difference in this class because the vehicles are so small. If you think about it, the wheelbase is very short, so they're very responsive vehicles. Very, very fun. Now, quick note, if you do this, generally shoes are not permitted on the track or on the little barriers, so just take your shoes off. If you wear sandals, that makes it easy. I do not wear sandals usually, so just take your shoes off. You probably notice there's some pairs of shoes out there in the back if you notice them marshaled by the camera. But again, the class is great. So the front diffuser in my car, I ended up shaving that off, and the reason why is every time I hit a wall, the little canards and the diffuser, they would sort of stick to the foam and then just stop the car. It was just a dead stop. And then engaging reverse, you are allowed to use reverse. Engaging reverse just takes time. It's very time consuming. And then it's just full speed when it does reverse. I'm not sure how to set the, I'm going to have to play with the transmitter, see if there's a setting to decrease the power for the reverse. If one of you knows, please put in the comments. The top guys, to be honest, they do not use the stock transmitter, they use other transmitters. I believe Noble is one of them. I have, like I said, stock out of the box. Here I go again. I think I hit a wall. Oh, almost hit it. There we go. That's what it was. And one of the reasons why I'm hitting the walls, if you notice I'm hitting the walls before the apex, is because I got used to taking the turn or preparing for the turn before getting there. Now with these grippier front tires, I have to take the turn at the turn, which is a massive difference. Let's see, here we go. So let the green car pass. Now there I crashed just because I was letting the green car pass. I overdid the pulling over or pulling off to the side. And that's what ends up happening. But again, just to have fun, it's amazing. You have, let's just say, $200 for car, battery, and chargers. Maybe a little more. Let's just budget $250. And you have a vehicle, and they do not break easily, although they can break. If you take a crash, they go off to the side, another car hits you full speed. You can break some parts. Some guys did break parts. Somebody broke a front body mount, so it's a little tongue that's on the chassis. But in general, they're pretty durable. The bodies are a thick plastic, so the bodies do absorb a lot of the shock and the impact. Now, bodies can fly off the chassis if you do not tape them down, so everybody tapes down the body to the chassis. Just regular clear tape works, or Scotch tape, for example. It does wonders. That's really all you need, just to prevent that body from popping up. Now, the way AAA mains work, for those of you planning on getting into racing just for fun or trying it out, is you generally have qualifiers. So you can have, depending on the location, here it was 2 qualifying races. Maybe you'll have 3 in other races, or if it's a 2-day event, you might have 3 races one day and then 1 race the actual day, and then the 3 mains. But here is 2 qualifying rounds, so you run the 2 qualifying rounds, and then you take your top lap, and that's how you qualify. And then you go A main, B main, C main. Now here there were no bump ups. Now bump ups, what that generally means is generally the top, say the top 2, for example, if it's an 8 car, if there's space for 10 cars, then there'll be 8 cars in the A main, 8 in the B, and then the C can have, up to 10, for example. And then the top 2 go on to the next main, so they would race the B main, so that would be a 10-car main, and then the top 2 there go to the A main, so that's a 10-car. Or if there's less cars, maybe you only bump 1, so just first place, or it just depends on the place. But the point is, when you have triple mains, for example, this was the C main, all 3 of them, you race 3 times, and it's the best out of 2. So, let's see, here we're going into the 3rd and final round. I adjusted my driving a little, you'll be able to tell, but not enough. Not enough at all. But going back to this, so let's just say you win the first main, and then you win the second main, you're automatically first place. Nobody can beat you. So you get a 1, and the next person gets a 1, and it's whoever has the lowest score wins. So if you're second place, you get 2 points, third place, you get 3 points, etc. So whoever has less points wins. So nothing beats a 2. As soon as you win 1, then you win 2, that's it, you win. So you could win the first one, lose the second one miserably, and then win the third one, and you're automatically the winner. In this case, for example, gentleman that won the main, he won the first 2 races, so he didn't have to race, but he just decided to do it for fun. So even though the machine is counting his laps, nobody was counting him, so first place goes to whoever was actually second, because he wiped the floor with everybody. But it was fun. He's a very good driver. You should see him running 10-skill cars. He's amazing. VTA, super fat. Well, pretty much every class he drives. But then, okay, so back to it. So let's just say there's driver A and B, and then driver A wins the first one, gets second place in the second one, and then B does the opposite. So then whoever wins the third one will get first place, and the other one gets second place. That's the way that one would work. And you take the lowest 2 numbers, so that means that first place would get, whatever number. Based on that, well, I guess it would be a 3, and the other one would get a 3, so they would both get a 3, because the third one would be a throw. Let's just say they end up in last and penultimate spot. Well, they still get their 3 points, so they still end up in first and second because of that. Let's see, what else? Something else is there are some bodies that are a little better than others. So if you get a body that has a front end that's very square, when you hit the wall, you're probably going to get stuck every single time. So you probably want a body that's a little rounder in the front. So that's one of the reasons why I just bought the Audi, because I liked it, but a lot of the guys would tell me that was actually a very good choice. And then when I shaved off the canards, like I mentioned, and that front splitter, that diffuser, it made a difference, quite a difference. So notice how I managed to bounce off the walls. Before that, if you go back to the very first race or the second race, you'll notice that I would get stuck. Here I'm actually managing to bounce a little easier, although I do get stuck from time to time, so that's something else to keep in mind. But again, as I mentioned, for $250, it's a very, very fun little car. And at home, I have some of those foams, different style though, so I can mess around with it. And I was messing around with the car before I came here to race, but I didn't realize I was in training mode. And I thought it was incredibly fast because, well, my living room is half the size of this track. So that's the reason why. But the nice thing too is, let's just say you're not racing it, these cars look really good on a shelf. So they're really good looking cars. So you can always shelf the vehicle and then go back and play. And it wasn't that expensive. It was only so it's $20 to race unless it's your very first time, and then you get the first one for free. Now that is at this particular track, so whatever track that you're going to, just make sure you get all of that information. And then be prepared to have some fun. This particular track, very family oriented. You will notice there are children. Some of those kids were racing, some of those kids were just there having fun. I mean, there's a mother and child there. She was not racing, and that child was not racing, but they were having fun. Behind the driver's stand, they had a ping pong table and some cornhole games set up, which was pretty cool. And they do have, you can't really see, but they have some curtains to divide up the place. So if you want to go and just kind of play volleyball, they actually had some basketball hoops in there. So tracks like this are very family oriented, where it is possible for an individual with a spouse and kids to convince the spouse and kids, whoever that may be, to maybe go there and hang out for a day. Now this happens to be a Friday, and it was pretty much an all-day event. They opened up in the morning for people that wanted to practice, and the first qualifier started probably around 1 or 2 o'clock, I do not remember. The event ended at 7 p.m., which is still a pretty good time to end and then go stop somewhere, grab a quick bite for dinner if you're far away from home. If not, then well, just go home. Meals are better at home. So if you're considering RC, consider Mini Z. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you have not, and I'll catch you on the next one.
What? Oh, my hair! My car! My rod!